Today we are working with extra firm tofu. This is one of my favorite tofus because I can use it as a meat substitute in most of my recipes. It's easy to work with, you don't need any special equipment, and you can make it taste like whatever you want. Starting out with extra firm tofu is the same as starting out with firm tofu. We need to slit the top of our package and drain out the excess water. And there's our tofu. This tofu is ready to go just as it is, but if you wrap it in a towel and dry it off, it will cook a lot faster and it will absorb the flavors a little better. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. It does not have to stay in the towel long. Mainly we're just drying it off and getting out the excess moisture. As you can see, I have three tofus here because I'm going to make a lot of different recipes for you. So you can see a lot of different techniques on how to cook extra firm tofu. I want to show you something interesting. This one here is an Aldi tofu. It's a lot firmer than, say, these two are both Aldi, than, say, this one. It's the same weight, but as you can see how much thicker that one is than the other one? This one just has a lot more moisture and it's not as firm as this one. So we might have a little trouble with this. I'll start by showing you how I cook my tofu 80% of the time. It's easy, it's fast, and it's perfect if you're going to add the tofu to some kind of sauce. You don't need a lot of flavor in the tofu because the sauce is going to add all the flavor. For this recipe, I cut my tofu into cubes because I want to get every side browned. If you want to, you can tear it into chunks. It'll look a little bit more like real chicken, but you won't be able to get all the edges really brown because of the different shapes. Either way, it's fine. So to cut my tofu into cubes, I like to start cutting it lengthways this way. Cut it lengthways this way. Half here. Then I cut this in half. Ooh, that's sticky. And then I cut this in half. Now we just add this to our pan and start browning it. I add this tofu to a dry nonstick pan. So you don't add any oil to this, which I love. And we're just going to put this on the pan, on the stove, on high or medium high. And we're going to just try to get brown on all the sides. So let's do that. The good thing about this method is you don't have to babysit the tofu. You can leave it over there and just keep stirring it every once in a while and get everything else done while that's cooking. Today I'm going to make a Thai peanut sauce that I use in an Asian noodle salad. I use it in a dinner bowl, and I also use it in a wrap. So it's a great recipe for lots of different things. And the truth is you can make any kind of sauce here and do the same thing. So maybe you could do a teriyaki tofu, or you could do a chipotle tofu, or any kind of sauce that you use or marinade, you can use that here. But today we're making a Thai peanut sauce. So while that's cooking, let's mix up the sauce. To the blender, we're going to add 1/4 cup of peanut butter. I'm going to kind of eyeball this because it doesn't have to be exact. This recipe is actually the salad dressing for my Asian noodle salad in my Kidlicious cookbook. If you don't have that book, you can get it on Amazon. But there's a 1/4 cup of peanut butter and a 1/4 cup of vegetable broth. Instead of vegetable broth, I always like to use a chicken style broth. So I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of water and a 1/4 teaspoon of this chicken style seasoning. This is McKay's chicken style seasoning. It is one of my favorites, so I will link it below so you can get some. And I think a little extra is always good, so I'm going to add a heaping 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to need 2 tablespoons of Braggs Liquid Aminos. This is really just a soy sauce, but I like it better than traditional soy sauce. It's got a better flavor, and it does not have any wheat in it, if that is a problem for you. Oops, I haven't opened this yet. There we go. So just 2 tablespoons of this. I'm going to leave this out because I'm going to put some of it into my tofu when it gets browned. We're going to add a tablespoon of sesame oil. This is the dark colored kind. It's slightly toasted and it makes this dressing so good. And of lemon juice. Now, I know what you're going to say. Why are you using a bottle of lemon juice? Here's why. I don't always have lemons on hand. I don't think it makes that huge of a difference in taste and things like this. And I know that if I had to buy lemons and squeeze lemons every time I wanted to use lemon juice, I wouldn't cook. So I'm using bottled lemon juice, and you can too. We also need 2 teaspoons of garlic and 2 teaspoons of ginger. And the same thing goes with those. If you have to peel garlic and chop garlic every time you want to use it, then you're probably going to cook less. You're better off cooking homemade food with a little shortcut than you are not cooking homemade food at all. And the last ingredient in this recipe is honey or agave nectar. I'm using honey today. I use 2 teaspoons of honey, and I just eyeball that. 1, 2. All right. Now we just need to blend this up. I'm going to pop this on my blender, and I'll be right back. All right. Our sauce is ready. This sauce is so good. You can almost eat it with a spoon. I forgot I wanted to add a couple tablespoons of Braggs to that before I call it done, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. tofu is nice and brown. At this point, you can take it out of the pan and put it in a bowl and save it until you're ready to add it to your recipe with a nice flavorful sauce, whether it's a stir fry or a curry. I have a great Thai yellow curry recipe that I'll link right here and in the description box below if you want to make a yellow curry. I did the same basic method with the tofu there. But today I want to show you something a little different. If you're not going to add this to a nice sauce, I'm going to turn this into a Thai peanut chicken, and I'm going to show you how to use it 3 different ways. To do that, we're going to put this back in the pan, and I'm going to add some of this sauce to kind of cook down and caramelize. Our Thai peanut chicken is ready, and it looks really good. I told you I use this in a lot of recipes. I use it in the Asian noodle salad from the Kidlicious cookbook. I use it in a bowl with rice and veggies. But today I'm going to show you how I make it into a wrap. So for the veggies, I've got some cabbage, purple cabbage and green cabbage. I'm going to throw in some shredded carrots. Oops, I'm going to put them in the bigger bowl. Put them in the bigger bowl, and I'm also going to throw in some onions. You can add any vegetables here. This is green onion that you want. A lot of times I'll put in some edamames, but I don't have any of those on hand. And I'm going to mix that with a little bit of this Thai peanut sauce that we have left over. And I'm going to stir that together. This is going to make a nice dressing for the cabbage. And we're going to add that to the wrap with our Thai peanut chicken. There's that. For the wrap, I like to use these extreme wellness wraps. They're high in fiber, they're low in calorie, so they're really good. I'm going to add some of the chicken. Now another thing you could do with this Thai peanut chicken is make a chicken satay, and you can serve this on a skewer with some rice and some lime wedges or something like that. I've seen it used as an appetizer. You can put it on a toothpick and have some peanut dipping sauce for it to dip in, and so many different things you can do with just one recipe of tofu. And again, this could be any different flavor, but today we're using Thai peanut chicken. So let's go ahead and add some of our veggies. Again, cabbage, carrots, purple cabbage, green onion, all the different colors. So this is a really healthy lunch, and it's easy. So I'm going to quick wrap it up. I like to fold the end in, and then I fold it over, and I try to squeeze as much as possible. And there you have it. There's our Thai chicken wrap. So good. The next preparation of extra firm tofu I want to show you is chicken chunks or chicken nuggets. This type of preparation of extra firm tofu is great for any of your recipes that call for chunks or nuggets of chicken. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about freezing tofu. All over the internet, you're going to see people telling you to freeze your tofu for better texture, or they're going to say to freeze it once, thaw it, and freeze it again. But I'll be honest with you, I rarely ever do that. The only time I freeze tofu is when I've bought a whole bunch of tofu and I use it in a meal prep. I bought it on sale, I want to preserve it. But let me show you what the difference is. This is a block of tofu that I froze and thawed, and it's very, very wet. When you put tofu in the freezer, it's way more like a sponge. So when I prepare extra firm tofu in the freezer, I'm going to take it out of the package, release some of the water, and then I'll freeze it in a marinade or a broth that will give it some flavor when I take it out of the freezer. But this is way wetter than it would have been if I hadn't frozen it. And I want you to see the texture of it. It falls apart easier, it doesn't hold together as well. And let me pop a piece off of this one. It's more spongy looking. Can you tell that? This is the non-frozen. The texture is a little different, but it's not a huge difference. It's not going to make that big of a difference when you're eating it. So I don't like to take the extra step of freezing it and thawing it, or freezing it and thawing it and freezing it and thawing it, like some people say. I'm going to make some of this frozen into nuggets and some of the non-frozen into nuggets, and we're going to see if it makes any difference at all. So to make my Chick-fil-A nuggets, I'm going to start with my marinade. It calls for a cup of pickle juice. Now, I'm not going to make quite the same amount as it has here, so I'm going to dump in the pickle juice that I have, including all the garlic and all the good stuff. It's not going to be quite a cup, but I think it'll be good enough. So I've got a cup of pickle juice. It calls for a cup of milk. And I'm going to go ahead and add some of this Better Than Bouillon vegetarian chicken seasoning to give a little chicken flavor to this. So let's add that in there. I'm doing about a tablespoon, or about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half. Let's see if I can get this marinade all mixed together. I think that'll be good. I am going to break my tofu into chunks for this one so it looks more like a nugget and not like, you know, cubes of baked nuggets, if that makes any sense. And I've noticed that the Chick-fil-A nuggets are kind of smallish, not quite as big as like a McDonald's kind of nugget. So I'm going to do that and drop all these pieces into the mixture here. We're gonna let them soak in this for a little while, and then we'll come back and cook them. While we're waiting for these to soak, I'm going to go ahead and mix up the rest of the ingredients. I'm going to need 1 1¼ cups of all-purpose flour and 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. Now that's so 2 tablespoons, which is an 1/8 cup, which I've got right here. So the recipe calls for salt. I'm going to use some Lowry seasoned salt. It calls for 2 teaspoons of that. I'm going to put a little bit less salt in because the chicken style seasoning I used in the tofu is extra salty. So I'm going to go ahead and put in maybe 1½ of these so I don't over salt my nuggets. And then I'm going to add some paprika, a teaspoon of that. I'm going to add a little onion and garlic powder because I don't know anything that's not better with onion and garlic in it. So let's do that. I got busy yesterday and I never got a chance to finish my nuggets. So these are my nuggets. They've been marinating in the refrigerator overnight. And every once in a while I'll go in and give them a shake and make sure they all have a little bit of flavor on them. And so here are my nuggets. These are the unfrozen version. And then we have our breading mixture. I'm going to leave as much moisture in this as possible. Now it sounds kind of strange because we always try to drain out as much water out of our tofu as possible. But this liquid has flavor. And we want to leave this liquid in there so it'll be a juicy nugget. It won't be a dry nugget. I find that a lot of these vegetarian or vegan nuggets tend to be dry because they try to drain all the water out. I'm just going to put a few nuggets into my flour. I'm going to give it a shake. Maybe I'll get a fork out so that I just want to make sure they're all completely covered. Whoops. You want to knock all the extra flour off, especially if you're going to bake them. I'm going to do 2 methods. I'm going to bake them. I'm also going to pan fry them. That way you can see the difference. We don't pan fry a lot, but occasionally it's okay. You're saving a lot of fat and cholesterol by not using meat, so this is a great alternative. My oven does have an air fry feature on it, so I'll use that when I cook them. So if you have an air fryer at home, this might be a great method. All right, I've cleaned up my area and I'm going to pop these in the oven, but before I do, I'm going to show you a little secret. I'm giving each of these nuggets a little spray of oil. This will keep the flour from being dry when we get them out of the oven. Okay, pop these in the oven. Okay, we're going to put these in the fry pan with a little bit of oil and we'll see how they come out. Okay, our nuggets are all done. It's time for a taste test to see which ones we like better. I do want to mention that you can eat these just like this, like a chicken nugget, or you can toss them in something like a barbecue sauce or a buffalo sauce and make a great meal that way. You could also toss them into a pan of roasted vegetables and eat them like that. This is just a great way to substitute chicken chunks with tofu chunks. You know how sometimes tofu has no flavor except for on the outside? Because we soaked it in that broth for quite some time, they're juicy and they also had that flavor. I could taste a little pickle, a little chicken. Now, if you're eating these just plain, like nuggets, I think the fried ones are going to taste better to you because you're used to the fried. But I do think that you would not miss the fry taste on these if they were tossed in a barbecue sauce. Serve them just like this with potatoes or anything like that. This really is a really good chicken replacement in most of your meals. But I'm going to show you one more method for cooking tofu, and that's going to be mostly in the oven. So we're going to make marinated tofu, and let's mix up the marinade. I'll show you how we do that. The last preparation of extra firm tofu I'm going to show you today is baking tofu. We are going to marinate it in a flavorful marinade, and then we're going to pop it in the oven and let it cook. The marinade we're going to use today is a simple Asian style marinade that would be great in a bowl or in a sheet pan dinner. So let's get the marinade mixed up. First thing we need is our Braggs Liquid Aminos. You can use soy sauce here. If that's what you have, go ahead and use it. If you can get a low sodium soy sauce, that would be better. All right, so there's 2 tablespoons of Braggs in the marinade. And then we're going to do 2 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil. This is a great addition to any Asian style marinade. It adds so much flavor. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons of that. Perfect. Then we need 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. If you don't have one of these cute little guys in your brown sugar, I'm not even sure what it's called, but it does keep your brown sugar soft. You soak it in water and you put it in there and it keeps your brown sugar from getting hard. I'll put a link in the description box below where to get these. But I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of the brown sugar, and this is 1/8 of a cup, so it's got 2 tablespoons in it. And put that back in there. 1.5 tablespoons of garlic. I, again, am using the minced garlic here. You can use fresh garlic. I rarely have the time or energy to do fresh garlic unless I'm doing something that's not cooked. If I'm doing like a bruschetta or something like that, I will do fresh garlic. But if I'm cooking it, I don't think it makes that much difference. I'm going to also add some ginger, just 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. We're going to add just a smidge of salt, and I'm going to add a little bit of cayenne pepper for some zip. So I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way of not measuring. And just do a smidge. You don't want it to be too spicy, but you don't want it to be not spicy. I also need 1.5 tablespoons of rice vinegar. I don't love something to be too vinegary, so I'm going to replace half of my vinegar with lemon juice. So let's start with about 3/4 teaspoon of rice vinegar, and then I'm going to go ahead and do 3/4 tablespoon of the lemon juice. There we go. And there's our marinade. All we have to do is give it a shake and it's all ready to go. I love using a jar to mix my marinade in so I can just shake it up. And now we just need to get our tofu ready. I'm going to break my tofu up into a bowl, and then I'm just going to pour the marinade over it to soak for a while. You can dice your tofu up for this and make it into little squares, but for this type of recipe, I like to do the chunks. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because it's going to be a lot more flavorful and it's going to soak up more of the liquid if there's lots of little nooks and crannies for it to soak into. So we're just going to break this into chunks. They can be as big as small as you want. You need to realize that the flavor is going to be mostly on the outside. So if you have a really big chunk of tofu, the inside's not going to have as much flavor. Let's go ahead and add our marinade. Beautiful. And give that a stir. Okay, now you're going to want to let this soak into the tofu before you start baking it. I'm going to let it soak for half an hour to an hour. You can do it overnight. If you wanted to at this point, you could freeze the tofu. It'll soak in more of that marinade, and then you can thaw it out and use it later. But for now, I'm just going to cover this, stick it in the refrigerator. If you have an extra block of tofu that you opened up but you didn't use, you can stick it back in the refrigerator. Just cover it in water. That'll keep it from going bad, and it'll last another week or so in the refrigerator that way. So my tofu has been marinating. I'm just going to add it to my sheet pan. I've covered the sheet pan in parchment paper because I don't like to clean sheet pans. And the parchment paper will keep it clean. I'm going to spread it out. I should have used a bigger sheet pan, but you kind of want it not to be all touching each other. But that's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna put this into the oven at a 450-degree oven for about 20 minutes, and then I'll check on it and I'll let you know. This is just a simple grain bowl with the marinated tofu, some broccoli and carrots. So good. You can do this with quinoa, brown rice, noodles, whatever you like. Okay, well that's it for our extra firm tofu. Next time we're going to use super firm tofu. You're going to be shocked at what you can make out of super firm tofu. So make sure you click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the recipes. So good.